Okay, you're being recorded.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so hey, Amber, welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you on today. I heard you on the Mompreneur Mastermind podcast, which I actually just interviewed Stephanie a few days ago. So her episode will be airing in a few days as well. And I just fell in love with you. I totally nerd
Aw.
out on all things productivity. And I also just really loved your message of navigating motherhood and being a very driven woman and being a mom. And I just remember when like Stephanie introduced you on her show being like, oh my gosh, this woman, like she's figured some stuff out and we can all
Aw.
learn some stuff. So, um,
Thank
I,
you.
I am just like super excited to have you on. Stephanie is, like, I'm a big fan of hers. And then Amber, why don't you tell sorry, Amber is the productivity specialist. So Amber, why don't you tell our listeners, like, what does that mean? When I first heard
Right?
that title, I was like, is that a thing? What is a productivity specialist?
Yeah. So is it a thing? Well, I made it a thing, but
I love
nobody
it. Yeah.
nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, I need a productivity specialist in my life," or "I need a
Right.
productivity coach." Like
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that would probably be like item number 1 of challenge marketing yourself, but it is exactly where I landed, which meant I am incredibly passionate about teaching business owners the skill set of being most productive.
Yes.
And so everything I do is how to teach the skill set of how to show up, invest your best time into your best activities. In fact, that's how I define productivity. Is very simply, it's a framework that can lay over any goal we have in our lives. And it's investing our best time, which is distraction focused, uninterrupted time, into our best activities. And our best activities are the ones that will propel us towards our goals, whether that's health, relationship with our kids, our spouses, in our community, or really in our business. And so I
Yeah.
really come from a place of being passionate about it. Honestly, like everyone listening, and if you are new, trust the process is an evolution. It did not start this way. And so, I mean, it started 2 decades ago. I was a business coach in the real estate industry, and my clients, I was specifically training them on how to leverage by building teams. And it was one of the seeds and whispers that led to where I'm at today. But essentially, I was working with the top sales executives that were really successful in their field, which had a resource at their fingertips of, coach training frameworks, models, and they were not executing on them. And I was incredibly frustrated because I'm really results oriented. And I was kind of listening and trying to figure out what it was. And essentially, they would come to each session and be like, this is so good. This is amazing. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so busy working in my business. I have no time to work on my business. Now,
Yes.
that didn't mean anything to me back then until a lot of life experiences and fast forwarding and I realized that this was a gap that I was on a mission to fill, which was a skill
Wow.
set.
Yeah.
And that's how the productivity specialist was born, was really to fill the gap for business owners so that they can show up and take advantage of all the things that matter to them.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit more how you kind of honed in on so that was 20 years ago. That was like an inkling of you're
Yeah, it's one
seeing
of those
a problem
whispers.
that
Yeah.
you eventually realized, okay, I can solve this. But how long have you been being the productivity specialist?
So that was probably 15 years ago. I would say that was back in 2000, if my math is right. Well, I know what years it was. It was like 2004, 2005, 2006. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
I started in real estate in high school. Like I interned in high school 1 day a week. I went to school 4 days a week. I seeked out this program. I went to college. I got a degree in real estate and business management, double majored. And I did all that and then got to the end of that road really, really young and realized I hated selling real estate.
Oh, no.
So I leaned into what I like, and I remember asking for a meeting with the CEO of the company, which that's what every young 20-year-old does.
true.
More
Yeah.
ambition than sense.
Yeah.
But it
Wow.
did work
Yes.
out because I said, look, I've been with the company now for like 6 or 7 years, literally since I was 16. By this time, all through college, and I got to the end of the road. I was like, just give me a chance. I'll work my way. But what I'm passionate about is like training and systems. I really just threw up all this stuff: training, systems, processes, back office, organization. This was a young Amber, young 20s.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know that sitting at that boardroom table, I was literally throwing up the words that I would inevitably create an entire business out of.
Wow.
And so he said, sure. And I said, listen, start me anywhere. I'll prove myself. And so he did. He started me like second over receptionist. Like I would break the receptionist for lunch. And within 6 months, I was promoted. And then within a year, I was a trainer. And within like the next year, I was a coach. And so I just kept moving up and working really hard and learning it. And again, going back to training, coaching, systems, processes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the market took a shift and I had other positions within the company. And then fast forward, drum roll, I had a kid, which changes your entire life, right?
Like, wow. Yeah.
I mean, we all know what that's like. And
Yes.
so I was always really ambitious and I had every intent of going back. Yeah. Till you hold
Yeah.
that little one in your hand. And I was like, okay, so maybe that's not going to happen. So I
Yeah.
took all my maternity, all my vacation, and I went back. And about 3 weeks before I was supposed to go back, I had to have the talk that I'm actually not going back.
Yeah.
So I remember a meeting with the CEO at that time. And I mean, I want you to think of this like bodybuilder, tough guy, like big old guy. And I'm in his office and I'm like scared to cry. I mean, I'm like shaking. I'm like leaving a career that I had worked all for. And I was like, I'm not coming back. And I remember him like taking a breath and leaning over the table. And he's like, good for you for choosing family over business. And
Wow.
didn't pause like I just did and rolled right into, do you want to stay on as a consultant? And I'm like, well, I need to talk to my husband. I literally came in here to quit. Like we have a
Right.
goal. And my goal was to stay home with my son the first 2 years till he could go to preschool.
Okay.
And um, so anyways, I ended up saying yes. And then I got a taste of what that world looks like. I made more money consulting than I ever did going in working in management. I was working night times, nap times before my son woke up. I had freedom. And I was like, whoa, what's this taste of business life?
Yeah.
By the time my son was 2 months old, I was incorporated with my new business, like LLC, domain, the whole thing. But I had already committed to a goal. And so I sat on my business idea for 2 years and I didn't launch it until on my son's second birthday. So
Wow.
on his birthday, it's the first, his 2 year birthday was the first day I opened my business because I
Wow.
knew I couldn't focus on both well and really achieve what I wanted to achieve by staying home with my son the first 2 years. So I sat on it, but I educated myself and I read and I did all the things without movement into action so that I could pace myself.
Wow.
And so then my son went to preschool, but the business wasn't making money. I had just opened the doors.
Yeah.
So we started with 2 days a week. And I'm sharing this part of the story because wherever someone's journey is right now, they may see where I'm at now 7 years later. My son's 9. It was a slow, progressive journey, like, just keep moving and realigning with, our goals in the home and our household and where my son was, his age and all that kind of stuff. So I started with 2 days a week. And then as the business grew, it went to 3 days a week. And then eventually it went to 5 days a week. And then, now he's in school. So
Right.
I paced my business and my needs with what the family needs were as well. And I was really okay with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So did you feel like any tension consuming all this information, preparing to build a business? Because this is sometimes I feel like sometimes I'm like, I just need to lay off listening to I need to like lay off consuming all this information because I know there's no physical way that I can act on all of it, possibly you knew it's going to be 2 years or
yeah. I look back and my memory says I was consuming information, but when I even look back at what I knew the first day I started, I didn't know nothing. Like nothing
Yeah.
compared to today, right?
Right,
And
right.
so I'm like, well, how much information was I consuming? I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought I was reading business books and like all the different things,
Yes,
and I
yeah.
was, but I do know that I did feel the tension because I'm incredibly ambitious. But
Yeah.
what I had to do is focus on, no, I'd already set a goal. Like I'm not going to waver from what that looks like. And
Right.
honestly, I didn't want to have two babies at once. That was like asking for twins had I started it. For me, this is my own
Yes.
personal. There are plenty
Yeah.
of mamas out there that are doing it, and praise to them and good for them. But they need to know what season of life they're in and have grace with themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and that is nothing that I take lightly. For me and my personal choice, I didn't want to do both, have an
Yeah.
infant and a young baby at home and try
Yeah.
and push that.
Yes.
So, you know, looking at it now, I was already putting restraints around my time by prioritizing based on my goals. And I
Yeah.
don't regret.
That's really good. No, and just for, and you probably don't know this about me, but and for our listeners, I am the co-owner of a Montessori preschool in DC, and then I started 2 years ago a totally separate Montessori preschool in my house. It's on the first floor of our house, and I can really agree. It is very stressful, basically, to have two babies at the same time. Like I had my fourth baby, and I'm like, forming the LLC and going through
Mm-hmm.
these zoning variances and like
Mm-hmm.
it yeah, I don't know that I would do it again. It is very stressful to have two
Yeah,
babies at the same time, and it's hard on your it's hard on your marriage and your family. And
it
so
is.
good
I
for you
mean,
for like eyes wide open. I'm
yeah, I
I'm
kind
not
of
gonna do
knew my
that.
limits. It's
Right.
interesting. Like I am, I just knew. Like I mean, that was the first time. I only have one son, and so I was a first time mom, and I wish I had someone to tell me what was expected, and I didn't. So
Yes.
I just navigated that season, and so I started my business. And again, I think this is. I think a lot of new business owners, or even if you've been in business for a few years, you think you need to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was first the organizational consultant, and then I switched to efficiency consultant, and then I landed on productivity specialist many years ago. But it
Yeah.
was an evolution because what was I really solving? What did the market want? Like organizational consultant was seen as a luxury organization in a business. I did the
Oh.
same exact thing and changed my name to efficiency consultant, and my business skyrocketed. And I didn't, and this was in my local, in my town, and I didn't do anything different than change my title. And that was my first big lesson about positioning. And then once I navigated through efficiency, I realized, yeah, we can create systems, but if the behavior, if I wasn't working with the business owner on like what's actually changing for them, then whatever system didn't last and whatever process wasn't implemented. And so that's how I actually niched down into really wanting to figure out what actually solved the problem, which I believe is our productivity, personal productivity, and time management skill sets.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is at the core of
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
But see, I didn't even
Oh,
know that when I first started business.
yeah. Well,
So,
and so much of it is like you just have to, I think you figure it out as you go, you
yeah,
know?
you do.
And
And it can feel frustrating or impatient or, but when you look back at what you accomplished in a year, like that's what you want to hold on to, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It can, yes, it can feel a little frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, okay, so that's incredible. So, Amber, what, um, how would you say that you grew your business while being I mean, I know you talked about that a little bit, but while being a mom and
Hmm.
while being a
Yeah.
wife, and how you made the time for those for
Yeah.
for everything. I mean, what did you say your definition was again of
Yeah.
productivity?
Productivity is investing your best time into your best activities.
Yes. Okay. So
And
how
so,
did you do that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just take it back. Like I'm going to tell you where I'm at today, but it's again, I want to honor that it's a process.
Right.
When I started my business, there wasn't much work here in where I live, which is Las Vegas, for my husband. And it's a very specialized industry that he's in. And so he was working on the road for 4 years. So I was essentially a single mom while starting and
Whoa.
running a business, and a single mom that was still madly in love with her husband, but it was this long distance relationship. And I
Yeah.
traveled a lot. Like, my son had been to, like, I think 15 plus states before he got into kindergarten. And
Okay.
so, just visiting, like, we just traveled a lot, and dad traveled a lot. And so, I had that going on while I was building a business. And,
Yeah.
I, um, January 4th of 2017, I remember visiting my husband in San Diego. And, I had been there all through the holidays, like Christmas and New Year's. And, I was getting ready to go home. And I remember telling him that this isn't working for me anymore. Like if he doesn't come home, I don't know if our marriage will last.
Yeah.
And this is a man I had been with since I was 15. Like, and I'm in love with him. I love him. And we were both going after a goal, but we kind of had our backs against each other, and
Yeah.
it just felt really hard, and it didn't need to be. And
Yeah.
so I didn't know what that meant. It just kind of came out that I had just been done. And I am someone that always figures it out. And I wore it as a badge of honor, not asking for help.
Yeah.
That was the first time I said, I need help. And it was the floodgate of completely transforming my life by asking for help.
Wow.
So business was good. If you would have asked me, things were good. But good, it's that saying, like, good is the enemy of great.
Yeah.
So I asked my husband, told my husband that he needed to come home. I wasn't sure how much longer we can make it. And he literally followed me home and quit from the road, like, the next day. Like, he called in and packed it all up and came home with me that Sunday. And no prospect of a job. Like, there was no work in Las Vegas. And I remember telling him, like, you know what? I am fighting for us and our family. And if we have to sell the house and the cars and, like, whatever that looks like, we're going to do it. Now, the other part of the story is he's on the road making really good money because I am building our future. Like, that's what our goal was. I'm here building a business that's going to provide for our future. He's doing what he needs to do now and the sacrifice. And so
Right.
we're both going after the same goal, but again, like, with our backs to each other.
Yeah.
And so my business wasn't in a place that could replace his income or support him yet, but that was it. He was coming home. And so we didn't know what that was going to look like.
Yeah.
But I asked for help. He came home. He helped me. I asked for more help. I asked for help from friends. Help from business coaches, like, you name it, help in the home. And my business tripled, and I replaced his income. And I was really, really able to focus because I was no longer trying to do it by myself.
Wow.
And that's a big lesson just about productivity. It's a lesson about being vulnerable enough to acknowledge that you cannot do it all yourself. Like, us women that have these huge, huge dreams, we can accomplish our dreams, but it's not up to us to do it solely by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, at that time, I actually wanted to say this. So at that time, I had only asked for help in the way of, when I first started my business, my first financial goal, like profits from my business, were to hire a house cleaner that came twice a month.
Come on, that's right. That's me.
And I remember, like, the first $250 profit, I told my husband, I am hiring a house cleaner. And I thought my business had to pay for it. But the reason that was important was because I was reclaiming all my Saturdays, right? They only came twice a month, but they deep cleaned. I was literally reclaiming my Saturdays, and I was already having, like, mom guilt about my kids at preschool, and I'm working, and, like, all the dynamics are changing all around us because I have this goal that I am ambitiously going after. But I had just been a stay-at-home mom for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So I was feeling guilt, but I also wanted more time with my family. So like, sweet, let's hire a housekeeper. Now, fast forward that to today, once I made that first ask, which was even vulnerable to my husband, I now have a personal assistant. I have a nanny. Like, we, I literally fired myself from my home. I don't
Yeah.
cook, I don't grocery shop. I don't do those things, but it's a total luxury and I get that, but it's also a life by design. Um, it is my job to close up shop in my business at a certain time. I sit down and enjoy dinner with my family. I play Connect Four or Uno or whatever that looks like with my son. That
Yeah.
wasn't possible when I was in charge of all the things.
Yeah. Yep.
And so for me, I found a lot of leverage and the ability to buy back my time at a lower rate than even delegating in my business.
Yeah.
And honestly, not only does our business generally require a higher rate because their specialty, whatever that looks like,
Hmm.
an executive assistant, a marketing person, you name what a business needs, it's at a generally a higher price.
Right.
But also with a young business, sometimes we are the best person to sell our services and we are the best person to
Yeah.
provide the service to our clients. And so that's why I found first the ability to outsource in my home via house cleaner.
Yeah.
My my second hire was an assistant. And then my third hire was again in the home, additional support in the home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
So
and
I
that
mean,
has
that's where
been,
we're at now.
yeah,
But,
that's awesome.
um, I just want to talk a little bit about mindset too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Please do. Yeah.
while this may seem dreamy to a lot of women, I get it. I didn't even let myself dream what I have now many years ago. Like I
Yeah.
just thought my husband's not going to be okay with that. What's my mother-in-law going to think? What are my friends going to think? Like that's I go to barbecues that they don't have nannies. Like I literally could get in my head and quite frankly, I was raised cleaning homes. I was raised extremely poor. Like my mom was a house cleaner. I would go with her to clean houses and like who am I to have this now? And the truth
Yeah.
is it was worth the mindset work and the work to move through that because who am I? I'm after my dreams. Like my husband's even more in love with me because I am aggressively doing all the things I love. I'm a happier person. I don't feel
Yes.
taxed and stressed and unhealthy. And I flip the script. I feel like I owe it to show up my best for my husband and my son and my friends um and my business,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
So
think that's so good. I mean, I do have those dreams too. And I mean, we're not as far along as you guys are, but yeah, our first hire was to house cleaners, and then I hired a VA, and then in a few months ago, we got an au pair, which is not,
yeah.
the equivalent, but she does so much, and I feel like I'm like living like a queen. It's like
Yes.
amazing,
I looked into that
and
too. That's a
you
great
know,
program.
yes, and especially when you have like three or four kids, it's like it's really talking about what you can hire out dollar per hour. Like you can hire an au pair dollar per hour versus me hiring something within my business that's I cannot hire at the same rate like
Right.
at all. So
Yeah.
I
Yep.
love that, but I do think there's just so much. It is a big mindset shift. I think there's fear of like being judged, and
Mhm.
I mean I have a great family, but I know other people. Just people are like, yeah, it's a lot of
Who are
mindset stuff.
you? Yeah.
Yeah,
What
who
what
who are you to
what's
have
forming
all
your
that
community? Yep.
and a lot of stuff I think is just self-inflicted, partly from our culture. I've read like several articles how America's number one dead last as far as supporting working mothers. We have this like deeply held American belief that only moms can raise their kids. And it's almost like a backlash from the feminist movement in the 70s. Like, oh, you're going to work. Well, if you're going to work, you still are going to like
Yeah.
have to
Do
do
all the things.
do all the things. And I think that's sometimes just stuff that we put on ourselves. Like we don't
I am
even realize.
so glad you said that because I held myself back thinking my husband wouldn't support it
Yes.
instead of just asking, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm being so honest here. Like there was things that I was putting on my husband that when I asked were just not true.
Yeah.
And I actually would like to share that with your audience is how I went about that. This was the way
Yes.
I went about it to make it right for me. And if this feels right, go for it. If it doesn't, you don't have to take this advice. But I read a book that had changed my life, and it was the Five Love Languages
Yes. Yeah, I
book,
love that book. Yes.
and
Yeah.
changed my life, changed my marriage, changed how I saw how we interact with people. And it was one of those books that you're reading and you're just like shaking your head. Yes, yes, right.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I was entertaining the idea of firing myself and all of these random responsibilities that I didn't enjoy, um, I I didn't want to do it selfishly. So what I did was I had a conversation with my husband and my son separately, and I said, of the things that I do, what matters to you? Because my love language is acts of service. So I thought if I stopped all the things, they would think I didn't love them.
Mm-hmm.
And their love language is an acts of service. Thank goodness for
Oh.
me.
Yeah. Lucky you.
And so my husband's like, I don't care if you cook dinner as long as we eat a healthy dinner.
Yeah.
And my son's like, um, no, I don't care if you pick me up at school, but will you have time to play with me? I'm like, yeah, more time to play.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we literally went through all the things, and some things, quite honestly, they said, no, we'd rather have you do. And I said, yes, because it was few things that mattered. And that's what mattered to me was what mattered to them. And anything that didn't matter to them, I literally found someone that could do
Wow.
them because they didn't care who did the laundry. They didn't care who put the groceries in the fridge. They just cared that they're eating healthy food and have clean clothes and the house is still running. And
Yes.
so when I released myself of that responsibility because it wasn't tied to the way that they felt loved, I was able to invest my best time into my best activities guilt free.
Yeah.
That's the big one. Guilt free
Yeah.
in my business. It added many more hours to be in my business.
Yes.
I didn't feel the pull all the time to where if I was working in my business, I wasn't completely focused because I wanted or thought I should be doing something else and vice versa. And so those decisions, I actually call this in my framework that I teach my clients. So I teach 4 pillars of productivity, and it's called
Okay.
the stop leverage formula. And
Wow. Okay.
so it's STOP, and it's how to leverage yourself, time, organization, and people. And the 4th pillar literally wouldn't have existed 5 or 6 years ago. But in the people pillar, one of them is called your posse. And your posse are those that support you at home so that you can show up and be your best in your business. And so
Yeah.
this is really my story of how I live that out, step by step and the mindset that goes with it. And all of that kind of good stuff
I
that
love
you have
that.
to take in consideration as you're growing and expanding and changing as a business owner. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, and I do feel like people are starting to at least talk about this more. I know. Are you familiar with Kate Northrup? She,
yes.
yes. So I did her Do Less course this summer, and one of the modules in it was something about like household scaffolding. It was a kind of weird name, but anyway, it's the same idea of like asking for help and going to your partner and having these crucial conversations
Hmm.
and figuring out how you can ask for help first of all, and then like yeah, exactly what you're
Oh,
saying, and
that's
finding out
interesting. Yeah, I wasn't
what's
familiar with her
important.
courses, but I do know who
Yes,
she is.
yeah. So but I have to say it's the first, that was the first I'd really like heard another woman, mom, business owner talk about like you need to ask for help. Like
Yeah.
you need to, like, no one is benefiting from you being a martyr.
No.
I mean, that's my words,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, it's so
um,
true. I mean, 2 years later, this was January of 2017, 2 years later, I'm like madly in love with my husband, healthier than I've ever been. My business is thriving. And I know that while I had a lot of the pieces and I've done well, this was that little missing piece in my own world. And everyone has their
wow,
own little
yeah.
missing puzzle piece. But for me,
Mm-hmm.
this was it because I held on to it for so long because of the way I was raised and culturally and
Oh, I bet,
like
yeah.
like what what if my girlfriends that we go to barbecues with on the weekends find out, and what does that mean, and stuff like that, which by the way meant nothing. Those stories were all in my head.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah.
they may be in your
Yeah.
head too if you're having
Yeah.
them, if you're listening
Yeah.
to this.
Right. Yeah. So good. Okay. So, let me ask you, tell us more about like some of the services that you offer as a productivity specialist, and maybe some of your best like productivity um, tips that you'd have for working women or stay at home moms or work from home moms, any of the above.
For sure. So I have so many tips, but I'm going to go with what my gut's telling me to tell your audience.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to lean into like the myth of productivity,
Oh,
because
yes.
maybe this is something that, first of all, the word productivity and time management have a meaning, and it's often a different meaning for everyone. Again, it's the same thing culturally, or how you've interacted with time. Like when you think of time, does it give you anxiety? Do you say, are you continually affirming, I never have enough time, there's never enough time, there'll never be enough time, I'm never getting down my to-do list? Like, just say that for a moment. Like, even me saying that in this interview is like giving me like tenseness, right? So imagine repeating that recording over and over all the time. And so what I want to share is, first of all, you're right. Like, let's just get that off. So the tension comes from saying it, but thinking it should be different. We
Mm,
don't have enough time for everything. And the quicker we can understand that and believe that, we can then make better choices with how we're investing our time. But
yeah.
so long as we always think like we should, but why didn't we? Like, I had this list and I didn't get done, and I wanted to do this, but I hadn't accomplished it by the deadline. That creates a lot of stress and tension. So I would say have grace with yourself. And once you know that you can't get it all done, now it's your job to determine what does get your time, energy, and attention.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I call that being your key activity. So I have an affirmation myself. So again, I'm going to share mine. It's my gift to you if you love it.
Yeah.
But I say the affirmation, I always have time for what matters most.
Hmm.
And by saying those simple words, it's on the positive, but it's making me the person that gets to choose what matters most. And now it's my job and responsibility to invest my time in those things. And when I'm
Mm,
really clear about that, it changes the game. It changes the game when you look at your to-do list, when you look at your calendar, when you're with your kids. If you know that you each day, each moment are making the choice of, I invest my time in what matters most.
hmm.
Now, another myth that I often get here is the thought that we should be productive all day, every day.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, no.
Does
There's
does this, sorry to interrupt, but does this tie into rest? Because that was something I forgot I wanted to ask you about. Like,
about rest. Oh, like
yes,
relax, like taking breaks.
right. Like, should
Yeah.
we be productive all the time?
So first of all, nobody is ever programmed to be productive all day, but the disconnect of thinking we should be and we're not gives us
Yeah.
that tension and stress. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, if you are, so again, let me back up. I define investing your best time into your best activities. If you dilute your best activities to all the things that show up on your to-do list, you're really not doing the things that actually make an impact. And
Right.
so the first thing to do is be really ruthless with those things. So what does your business need you to do consistently
Mm,
to reach your goal? It's not all the things. Now,
yeah.
where it gets messy is that our businesses do require us to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so what I want to say is, I want you to be productive 1 hour every day, and then bump it up to 90 minutes every day. And if the rest of the day is putting out fires and balancing your checkbook and
Mm,
returning phone calls and literally all the other things, what you did was say, no matter what, for 1 hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, you may build yourself up to, you are doing focused, uninterrupted, distraction free time on the activity that will literally make the biggest impact, not just keep you busy.
yeah. Wow.
That is what we want to accomplish. If I
Yeah.
were to poll your audience, and I said, how many of you want more focused, distraction-free time?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
all the hands would be going up.
Yeah.
And so, you know, um, I'm trying to go in a few different directions, and I want to take it back to another example. When I first started my business, and again, it was when my son was 2, I would wake up, and again, my husband was away, so I was primary, get him ready, take him home, like all the things.
Mhm.
I woke up at 3:30 every single day and did my morning routine, and then worked until 7 a.m. when he woke up, and then got him ready and took him to preschool. And I did that because I packed in my most valuable, most productive use of time first thing in the morning, because he could be sick that day. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
when he was 2, I think I dropped him off, made a phone call, and had to turn around and pick him back up again. Like, that was the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
And so I took the sacrifice for a year and a half to carve out that time in the morning, and was ruthless with it. It wasn't busy work. It wasn't emails. It wasn't balancing my checkbook. It wasn't any of that. And that, I can tell you, was the key to growing my business, being ruthless with
Wow.
those activities, and just that hour and a half or 2 hours, that I could carve out in the morning on a consistent basis.
Wow.
And so
That's
I know our interview is getting long. And so I do want to recommend an episode on my podcast, if you don't
yeah.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
One of the things that some people have a difficulty doing is actually nailing down what are those activities that are going to make an impact.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
on my podcast, I share productivity. It's called Productivity plus Profitability, Why Your Business Needs Both. And in that
Okay.
episode, I share the 4 buckets that every business owner, no matter what industry you're in, what stage you're in, it doesn't matter. You will find your high value activities in those 4 buckets. And I just break it down. And so I think that would be a good for them to just go deeper. I couldn't give it enough justice in this one
Yeah.
episode.
No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna like go check that out as soon as we
Yeah.
get off. Okay, that's
So
fantastic.
So once you identify your activities in those 4 buckets, that's what I want you to focus that hour, 90 minutes, whatever that looks like for you
Yeah.
and your business.
Oh, I think that's so such powerful advice. And I think it's I mean it's a little daunting perhaps for our listeners and myself to think about waking up at 3:30, but I have
Don't do that.
we're not saying that's necessarily the solution,
No.
but any mom out there can totally relate, and to just think about, I mean, I know a lot of women when they were just building their businesses and their children were really young, they who is it, someone, oh, Ali Casaza, I don't know if you're familiar with
Mm-mm.
her. She's like minimalist mom.
Okay.
um I know, I think she said for like 2 years she woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning for 2 years when she was just starting her business.
Mm-hmm.
So that might not be the solution for everybody, but it is an idea to think about, like, where can I like most guard that focus time?
Oh
Um,
my gosh, that's
and
so true. I mean, you might be a night owl. Like, you might be like, Amber,
exactly.
you are crazy. I'm still up almost around midnight. Like, then you
Yeah.
carve out the time after your kids go to
Mm-hmm.
sleep. For me, I'm done. I'm drained. My body doesn't
Yeah.
work that way.
Yes.
Um, But also, what about nap times? Like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
getting the advice as a mom, like, you nap when the kids nap. And I wish I did that. I was doing dishes, I was doing that in the first
Yeah.
2 years. But what if you just carve that 45 minutes out, and then you
Yeah.
could do dishes another time? Like,
Right.
it is going to take some sacrifice if you have little ones at home. It's going to come from somewhere. But if you're really clear about what will make an impact, I think there's a lot less guilt around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, I was listening to another anxiety. They were talking about a podcast about anxiety. And they were saying anxiety is really just a sign that our reality is out of alignment with our values. And
Mm-hmm.
which is really exactly what you're talking about. Like, we think we have this value of this and it should look like this, but our reality is not that. And then you need to come into alignment with, like, is that really your value? And if it is, how are we going to make that reality?
Right.
Um,
You
so,
know, the last thing I'll say, that the biggest tip on productivity is the way that you are productive and I'm productive and each of your listeners is going to be different. And
yes.
so when you're hearing
Yeah.
I did this in the morning, do not shut on yourself and think I should have enough energy to do that, or I should literally drop all of that and ask yourself, where do I do my best work? Like, is it at a coffee shop for 1 hour, or is it at your kitchen table? Or there's no, like, I have clients that do their best work at the kitchen table, but have a home office, tell me they feel guilty about it at the kitchen table. So now they're not doing their best work because they think they should be in their home office. And I'm like, so where do you do your best work? Well, my kitchen table, but I feel like I should be in my office. I'm like,
Yeah.
stop that, drop that. Like,
Yeah.
do you?
Yeah.
And so if I could end anything, is listen to your internal voice, lean into the areas in which you realize you are doing your best work, and recreate that as much as possible with no judgment.
Yeah. That's
I mean, I
awesome.
have clients that listen to TV in the background, and that is where they can do their most focused work. If
Yeah.
you listen to any other productivity expert, they'd be like, that's crazy. Like, it needs to be silent, completely, distraction free. Well, the truth is, that's how they realized by accident, that's how they do their best work. So who am I to say don't do that? Like,
Right.
if that's the white
100%.
noise
Yeah.
you need.
Then
So,
yeah. Yeah.
anyways, I get on a whole excitement thing about that, because I don't think enough people are talking about just honoring who we are, and just, you know, leaning into that. And that's when we show up our best. And that's all our business wants. That's all our kids want. That's all our spouses want, is us to be our
Mhm.
best.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so Amber, I usually close out my interviews with a final five. So,
Oh,
what is one of your favorite books and why?
okay. This always freaks me out. Okay. These questions freak me out. So
I know.
I'm like, they're watching me on video sweat. Okay, so the first one is, the book is Profit First. It changed my entire business and life.
Gosh, I just ordered that like 2 months ago and I have not even cracked it open.
Don't
But I've
pass
been
go. Profit First. Mike
okay.
Michalowicz changed my entire thinking about money and business, and how our businesses should serve us, and all the things. Great book.
Wow. Okay. Oh, I'm
I'm
feeling
glad you have it.
kick in the pants. Yeah, I gotta like pull it out of my drawer now.
So,
Okay.
fun fact, I recommended that book so many times on podcasts and things, that he sent me a case of books to give out to people
Oh, that's so
because he's like, I
awesome.
keep hearing you're referring me. I keep
Yes.
hearing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's
And,
great.
and I interviewed him on the podcast too, so you can go listen to that.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, I am. Okay, awesome. So, okay, and what podcasts are you listening to and why?
I am listening to, so I'm actually on a content bend. Like, I'm not taking in content right now.
Oh, like a
So
content fast.
I'm
Yeah.
on a fast. I want to say binge.
Okay.
No, I'm on the
Yes.
opposite.
The
I am
opposite.
fasting. I just came out of a launch, and
Oh,
it can be really noisy, and there's a lot. And so I am taking a couple weeks, and I've silenced. I've gone dark on social media, and I'm not consuming any content at the moment. That's
okay.
really purposeful. But
Yeah.
I mean, I have lots of favorites.
Yes. Okay. All right. What is the best business advice that you've ever heard?
Oh my gosh, that is so hard.
Yeah.
Business advice. Um, I mean, it sounds so cliche, but the one that has served me the best is to always go back and trust yourself. Like,
Wow.
business and listening to podcasts and mentors and coaches, this is amazing. But at the end of the day, you need to filter it and hear your own voice.
Yeah.
Or you'll end up creating a business that doesn't feel like it's in alignment. And so maybe that's just the season I'm in, but I'm leaning into just quiet and listening
Yeah.
to myself and my own intuition for what I want to create in my business.
Yeah. Yeah, that is great. Because it can become very hard to identify like what is it that I want. I mean, I think that's hard anyway. But then
It
when you have all
is.
these other voices, it just becomes even so much harder.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay, if you could live anywhere in the world, Amber, you could take your dog, your son, your husband, community with you. Where would you live?
Oh my goodness. So that is actually an unanswered question, and we are actively in the pursuit of answering that.
Oh,
So we are actively traveling to either decide and narrow it down, or cross them off, and we have many more cross offs. The
wow.
the one that is leading for me is Denver, Colorado, rather, not
Hmm.
specifically Denver, but Colorado. But I live in Las Vegas, so even if we chose that, I think it would be a second home, because I would be here in the winter in Vegas and visit there for winter sports, and their summers are amazing. But I mean, we have not narrowed that down, but we
Yes.
actively talk about what's next for us and where are we
Yeah.
going. Hmm.
Okay, awesome. And what do you want to be doing 5 years? Where do you want to be and what do you want to be doing 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I want to be in business, and I want a lean team of amazing people that are all in their zone of genius, and that I truly get to do the things that light me up and only light me up, which are
Yeah.
currently. And I say currently because I just think about how much I have evolved in the last 5 years. I'm so excited about who I'm going to be in the next 5 years.
Right.
But really, it's this podcasting, podcast interviews, speaking, teaching, and coaching are those. If I just did those 5 things all the time, I think my business would literally be the best business ever. And it would allow my team to all live in their zone of genius to support that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. Okay. Well, Amber, I think we're going to come in for a landing here, but just share with my listeners kind of like a little bit more, like where they can connect with you more and kind of like how I know you off. I don't know. Do you offer one-on-one coaching? I know
I
you have some.
do. Oh,
Okay,
yes,
and if
yes.
you have
I think you asked me
courses
that
or
question. I must have not answered it.
yes, right,
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Sorry about that. Yes. So I
yeah.
do one-on-one coaching. I have VIP like intensive as well.
Okay,
I have mini master classes. Right now I'm running time management made simple courses. So if you head on over to my website, I always have offerings.
okay,
One-on-one coaching has been the staple of everything. And then I offer trainings and different programs throughout the year around
okay,
time management. So one, if you want to listen to the podcast, it's called Productivity Straight Talk. Two is my website, which is theproductivityspecialist.com. And three would be I love hanging out on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, come find
yeah.
me, Amber_De La Garza.
Awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Amber. We so appreciate you coming on the show today. Hope you have a great weekend.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks for so much for reaching out. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy to see another podcaster. This is an amazing
Yay.
way to connect with our audience. And so I'm so happy that you took that leap.
Yeah, thank you. All
You're
right, take
welcome.
care.
Take care. Bye bye.